Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow has been on my intimidating TBR list for years now, and I finally cracked it open this week. I'm expecting this to be a difficult and hopefully rewarding experience. It's already inspired me to create today's video. When I say a book is difficult or challenging to read, I use the terms broadly. It may be that they are hard at first to understand, maybe there are parts of the book difficult to visualize, or maybe like the first book that I'll talk about, Samuel R. Delany's Dahlgren, a book that I love, elements of the writing are just over my head. 3 of the books on this list I've read 3 times, and it was on the 3rd reading that the novel really gelled for me and I connected enough to really love the work. Dahlgren is one of these 3. Everything else on this list I've read only once. In Dahlgren, fictional Midwest city Bologna is isolated from the rest of the country per a mega catastrophe, an implied apocalypse. Observing from Bologna in the aftermath of catastrophe, there are at times 2 moons in the sky, a giant red sun, no telephone signal or radio waves out, and to leave, you have to walk across a bridge. There are roving gangs, burning buildings, sometimes not burning buildings, basically chaos. Things in Bologna don't always add up. The protagonist is a kid called Kid. He actually doesn't know his name is given to him by an engineer that he becomes friends with. Even his name is somewhat inconsistent. Sometimes it's Kid with 1 D and sometimes spelled with 2, or it's just the Kid. Kid doesn't know who he is and really isn't much aware of his past either. Through the novel, he tries to piece it together and find some sense of self. His journey includes getting in with the gangs, lots of edgy for its time sexual encounters, and almost all of the time trying to make sense of the world that he's in. The text is a difficult read for a number of reasons. The prose is at times, early in the book, stream of consciousness, and it takes a lot of concentration to follow. The city of Bologna itself is a mystery. Why is this building burning and then not burning? What is actually real? There also is a circular element to the story, with the beginning and end points unclear. In his novella Empire Star, Delany does a similar thing, and while you question what parts of the story really happened first, it's not essential to enjoying the read. With Dahlgren, it's similarly not essential to appreciating and enjoying the read, but it is much more confounding. There are points in the story where I would question what things were real, or if it was something the kid had dreamed of, or was he having a schizophrenic moment. It is confusing, and admittedly, that's part of the fun. While the ending of Dahlgren, or Grendel, if you will, that's an inside joke for those who've read the book, famously links back or flows back or sets up the beginning of the book, adding more confusion, it only becomes more fascinating with additional reads. I ranked Dahlgren high on all of my massive science fiction book ranking videos, and I highly recommend it as an incredible, even if difficult read, and because it's a reading experience, comparable to no other. Fearsome Engine by Ian M. Banks. I recommend this if you like uploaded consciousness science fiction and stories that explore the necessity of a body relative to a fully aware and realized consciousness. I recommend this for fans of Ian M. Banks who've completed the Culture series and are ready for more of his brilliance. This is not the most difficult read on today's list, but there are elements that add to the challenge. The most obvious is the altered language and prose associated with one of the characters. The story is told from 4 different POVs, and that of Baxter, a young man comprising basically a fourth of the book, is written phonetically and is a bit dense and jarring. Words are written as they sound rather than with correct spelling. It's sort of a wash though in that it adds interest to the character of Baxter, but the on-ramp for getting into the flow of this with his point of views is stretched out a bit, and for some, it's just going to be too off-putting. Different stages of reality, big ideas, and hard science elements could also qualify under the difficult label, but not really. The better label for those are welcomed, creative, brilliant, exciting to read science fiction. In Fearsome Engine, Banks imagines what the evolution of virtual reality will look like. Far future Earth is under impending threat as the solar system may soon be enveloped by an interstellar cloud that blocks the sun. Banks presents a computer network virtual world made up of an old space elevator, giant miles-long rooms with all kinds of weird stuff going on, chimeric creatures, strange reality, and different forms of artificial intelligence. This is known as the Crypt. Will the solution to the life-threatening space dust be found here? As mentioned, there are 4 points of view from which the story is told. Besides Bascule, there is Asura, a young woman, and being as vague as possible here, she's trying to deliver a message. There's Hortus, the chief scientist of the king, who's looking into the encroaching interstellar cloud. This will pull Hortus into a conflict with the king. Finally, there is Count Alandre Sassine VII, who keeps dying. He gets killed for the 8th time. In this far future world, things work a bit differently. Having spent his lives and still being on the assassin's hit list, he's killed several more times in the virtual world, the crypt. He needs to figure out who's out to get him before he runs out of virtual lives. Book of the New Sun, specifically Shadow of the Torturer and Claw of the Conciliator by Gene Wolfe. Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun starts with the Shadow of the Torturer. In Torture, Severian is an apprentice in the Torturer's Guild. He grew up in the guild and is clearly a bit of a mixed up individual. The setting is a far, far future Earth, now called Earth, spelled with a U, and with some intentional resemblance to the Byzantine Empire, perhaps blended with some medieval imagery. The setting is in part surreal, as things are not necessarily as they seem, and our only source of awareness of the surroundings is that which Severian describes. Because he knows and inhabits this world, he's not explaining much beyond his immediate point of view. As Severian rises through the ranks of the guild, he becomes close with a client. That's what they call the people that they're about to torture. He enables this client to kill herself to spare her from the agony of eventual torture. Severian is banished from the guild, and the rest of the novel follows his strange adventures across the city of Nexus. I cannot stress enough how much the atmosphere and the people that he meets do not at first, and in some cases never, completely add up. In Claw of the Conciliator, the confusion grows even greater as very few things are revealed about these characters and the world they inhabit, while additional confusing characters are added. Also introduced in the first 2 books is the mysterious Claw of the Conciliator. This is an item of mysterious origin and maybe power, and you will not find out for certain in these first 2 books. The full series follows Severian's journey from his time as an apprentice at the guild to his eventual reign as the Autarch. The difficulty of this story is lessened with subsequent reads. Last year I read Shadow of the Torturer and Claw of the Conciliator for the 3rd time, and it was the first time that I felt like I understood most of the world. For a book that's so difficult to understand, there is enough to intrigue and dazzle you to make it worth your while to read through the full series. Making it through a second reading of this series offers a payoff that is so rewarding that I can't fully articulate it. Finally, and finally is a word that probably is not appropriate to use when talking about Book of the New Sun, finally Shadow of the Torturer and the Claw of the Conciliator do not feel like science fiction the first time through. The second time through, though, they do. Hardboiled Wonderland and the End of the World by Haruki Murakami. I like books that make me ask questions. This one almost goes overkill on that front. Almost. The biggest question surrounds what is real and not real, who is who or who else, and how are the book's 2 main storylines connected. Considering these questions as well as Murakami's examinations of consciousness and subconsciousness and the manipulation of both, meets the difficult sci-fi threshold. The story is very engaging and enjoyable, while at the same time, stunningly complex. In Hardboiled Wonderland, there are 2 storylines told through alternating chapters. One story, the Hardboiled Wonderland, is a bit of a race against the clock, a futuristic Tokyo, conspiracies, and a guy with an enhanced, powerful data crunching, data encoding mind. In the second storyline, The End of the World is a mystical town with golden-furred beasts, giant insurmountable walls, a gatekeeper, and a dream reader. The dream reader, the story's narrator, wakes up with no memory of who he is, or what he's meant to be doing, or why he's even in the town. Oh, he's also without his shadow. He had to give it up when he entered the town. Like I said, this is complex. It's also a lot of fun. Raft by Stephen Baxter. Baxter is known for hard science fiction, and Raft is hard science fiction. This is the first book of Baxter's Zeely sequence. The difficulty is the hard science fiction and the strange world building. I had to read the first 50 pages of this twice, and the first 30 pages of this 3 times. The setting and the astrophysics are daunting, and while I have some confidence that Baxter can make a case for his physics, my simple brain is cynical. Especially unusual is that humans who end up in some sort of alternate universe with gravity that's a billion times that of our universe are somehow able to survive. The few thousand humans that inhabit this space are scattered about, with the most important living on the Raft inside of a nebula. The Raft is made up of the ship that brought their predecessors here. The Raft is the science and tech center of the society as well. The story is a fun read, a race against time, and an adventure. It's only the science that's difficult. And even with skimming parts of the heavier science, the strong prose and storytelling was not diminished. Stars are small and they burn out pretty quickly in this heavy G universe, and essential to survival is the ability to successfully migrate to the next habitable area. I don't think I could go tit for tat with Baxter about what I found to be unbelievable, so I'll qualify this as a me thing, but it was difficult at times to suspend disbelief about all the obstacles to surviving that were missing in this universe of extreme gravity. I do recommend this for fans of hard science fiction and those comfortable with science fiction that values big ideas over layered characters. This one hits the mark. Incandescence by Greg Egan. Because of Egan, I decided to put a one book per author limit on this list today. Egan's entire catalog could fill this episode. Incandescence is freshest on my mind, so I'm going to talk about that one today. I also expect to be talking about his novels Dicronauts, Shield's Ladder, Diaspora, and Permutation City pretty soon, so you can also catch those in future episodes. Further, all of those are blurbed, as well as Incandescence, on my Top 210 Science Fiction Books video. If you haven't caught that episode yet, check it out. Incandescence is breathtaking. It has everything that I love about science fiction. People and objects in space, artificial intelligence and virtual realities, a sense of wonder and exploration, not only of space, but of the future and of alien worlds, and giant, mind-blowing ideas. Incandescence hosts two storylines. The first one begins with a question to the protagonist Rakesh: are you a child of DNA? Related to this question is the quest for discovery that he and his companion Parantham embark on through the galaxy. Rakesh and Parantham are inhabitants of the Amalgam, a construct or governing body of sorts that spans the outer part of the galaxy. Rakesh's investigative journey will take he and Parantham traveling as Data and occasionally inhabiting avatar bodies via a consciousness download through the galactic core, the Bulge, and into the vicinity of the mysterious force that dwells there, the Aloof. Who are the Aloof? Can they be trusted? Do they trust those of the Amalgam? What is it to them, and why are they so interested in a DNA-based race? And why are they so secretive and aloof? That's all part of the storyline. The second storyline stars Roy, an alien being with very curious behavior and anatomy, who lives on the Splinter. The Splinter hosts the unusual farmer-like, miner-like alien beings living a fairly primitive existence. The Splinter is a fragment of a comet or other type of heavenly body. This story features a lot of astrophysics and math, particularly geometry, and follows these aliens as they discover the nature and physics of their world and attempt to learn how to survive the forces of the universe that surrounds them. Difficult in Incandescence, first and foremost, is all of the math. It's difficult because it's at times tough to keep up with if you don't want to slow down your reading. It's also difficult in the sense that it weighs down the fun factor. I realized in my third read of this book to appreciate the math for what it is and what it represents to the beings of the Splinter, and decided that it was irrelevant to the read for me to spend any time trying to get all of the nuance. This book is brilliant. Gravity's Rainbow by Thomas Pynchon. As mentioned, I just started this 20 pages in, and I have just a very vague sense of what's going on. My best guess based on those pages, plus the summaries that I've looked up, is that the story occurs on the tail end of World War II, and at the center of the plot are investigations surrounding the German V-2 rocket, an extreme and potent technology for the time. There are characters galore, and there feels to be a lot of dream sequences, alternate history themes, and individuals with some unusual abilities. Because I'm expecting the read to take a few months, I'm rereading Murderbot on the side to have something easy to take a break with. Murderbot is a fun space opera, sort of military science fiction novella, featuring a cyborg robot character who hacks its own governing module and presents as a sentient individual among a crew of scientists on a distant planet. Thank you for watching. I'm Michael Everts, and this is Fit to be Read.